You got the president online. I know.
Gotcha.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the January 24th, 2024 Kildow Hills Board of Commissioners meeting. I call this meeting to order. I'm going to ask everyone to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we enter into tonight's moment of silence, I just want to let everybody know that there's some folks in our extended Kildow Hills family that are not in the best of health. And now is a good time to say a prayer for those people. So please join me in a moment of silence. All right. All right. Well, we have an agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as presented, Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All of those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have an agenda. All right. Now is the time we set aside for public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience to address the board on any topic of their choosing. We do ask when you're called upon to approach the podium, speak into the microphone and identify yourself by name and address. There will be no debates. Please keep the comments to 3 minutes if you're speaking for an individual and 5 if you're speaking on behalf of a group. If you have any written remarks, please give them to the clerk when you are finished so they can be added to the public record. That being said, would anybody like to take advantage? Yes, sir.
My name is Bruce White. People know me as Woody. Live at 508 Lob Valley Court. I've had several building permits over the last 5 years since I built my home. And 2 weeks ago on the 6th, the last inspection was done by Marty Shaw with the building inspector's office. And we had a conversation out front. It was just nothing wrong with my inspection at all. We sat out front and talked for a minute about our children. And he knows my son and I know his daughter. So I had a few questions for him because I've done some projects in the past where I was called out on window size and a few different things, which I understand. We're going to do everything by code, and I want to do everything by code. In our conversation, we look over and he sees that my neighbor had put in new windows. They were unfinished. They hadn't been wrapped around. It had made them smaller. So I asked him about the 2 windows that I had to take out of a project I was doing because they were 3 inches too short for the fire ordinance. So, and he explained to me that, as long as you don't change the size of the style windows, but he said, I might want to look at them in case there are bedrooms. How many bedrooms are in there? And I said, I believe there are 3 downstairs. I'm not sure. That conversation ended. The only thing I said, I wish they would clean up the yard. I wasn't filing a complaint. He wasn't there because I was filing a complaint. The neighbor on my other side, he knew that they had a ground wire that burned out about 4 or 5 months ago because he's been to my house so many different times over a period of different inspections for different projects. And I said, this is at 506. I said, well, Miss West had her electrical issues taken care of. And she's a good friend of mine. She's 85 years old. And he said, I wonder if she got a permit. I said, it was repairs. It wasn't an addition or anything like that. He shook his head like that. I said, Marty, I do not want to get anybody in trouble. I am not filing a complaint. That is not why I told you that. About a week went by and Miss West calls me and she has a letter from Jordan, who I guess is the ordinance enforcer, saying that there was a complaint against her property. And she called another friend and, you know, I was like, I didn't put in a complaint. You know, it was nothing about a complaint against her with our conversation. Well, she finally calls and talks to Marty last Monday. I'm not sure of the date, last Monday, but he told her, brought up my name, said that I had filed a complaint on both her and the neighbor, which was false. It wasn't a legal statement or ethical. If anything else, it's the most unethical thing I've ever known anybody in the town to do. And so she asked me about it. I said, Miss West, I told her what I'm telling you. That's not what happened. A few days later, Marty sent her his email to Jordan with my name in it, listing a bunch of stuff as a complaint. He sent this lady his email to Jordan with my name in it, not only about her property, what we discussed about what her repairs, but the property next door to her, to an 85-year-old lady. They went out and they condemned her house because she, 30 years ago when this house was built, the downstairs had been upgraded. I know the plumbing and electrical work had been done because it had as helping. I have a relative who's a plumber, and I know that when you put your waste and overflow on the concrete, that's inspected. Then the concrete's all this was done. We couldn't find a permit for it. I discussed with her about selling her house at one time, so I looked into it. I said the survey shows it's enclosed. Doesn't say anything about the downstairs, but I knew that the upstairs had been permitted for 3 bedrooms. So now he's really digging into it. Today, I noticed there was a surveyor out there surveying, and I know it had to have been because of him. I don't see why, even if there was an issue with the building department, why they would go back on a house that's 30 years old. It's the nicest looking house in the neighborhood, and ask this 85-year-old woman to spend all this money. Not only was it unethical for him to use my name in this, it's just, it's a shame. And I know that this time of the year, a lot of them they ride around and they look for things. I've seen them take pictures. I don't know if it's to generate revenue, but it happens. I mean, you can go through the 2000 block of Avalon section. Every other house there has unconforming issues. But you're not going to go over there and make everybody tear out everything in a downstairs over something that was done 30 years ago and maybe 5 owners later. And that's what they're doing. It is a shame. This lady's 85 years old. She lost her son. She inherited this house from her son, the way it sits now and the way it was 30 years ago. Okay, and I'm sorry. That's all I have to say to you. I am going to go further with this, and I have talked to an attorney over what's done. If you look at, or I'll wrap it up real quick. Under your ordinance, I just looked it up on putting in a complaint. It says straight out anonymous. Even if I did put in Worcester, it's supposed to be anonymous. And they told me that's only if it's over the phone. It's not right. It's not right. I'm really disappointed. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Mr. White. Would anybody else like to speak in public comment tonight? Yes.
My name is Dennis Pohl. I'm a resident, or I'm a homeowner in Red Shores. West Fourth. Yeah. I promised Michael I'd stay under 3 minutes for both sessions. Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, everybody. The 1989 beach access plan has been addressed. The 2019 plan has also been addressed by me. Let me check that off. We have talked about the inexpensive improvement of temporary porta potties at the 4th and 5th Street beach accesses. Check that off. We have talked about what I believe is the inexpensive seasonal improvements of showers at the 4th and 5th Street beach accesses. We've talked about the replacement of the 4th Street beach access handicap walkway. The people in this room mayor, commissioners, professional employees of Kill Devil Hills, you people can make it happen. You can, you have the ability to make improvements to the seasonal porta potties, showers, and possibly the replacement of the 4th Street walkway for the 2024 summer season. I ask you folks to do the right thing. For all to experience KDH, that's a new word, right? With positive beach amenities at 4th and 5th Street beach accesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pohl. Anybody else like to speak in public comment? All right, not seeing anybody. Response to public comment, Mr. White has left. And that was a lot. So I really don't know where to begin. I think this attorneys were mentioned. We may need to wait and let our town attorney have a chance to digest that and give us some guidance.
He's aware of it, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. And Mr. Pohl, thank you again for coming and addressing us tonight and keeping us well aware of your concerns. Anybody else, any response to public comment this evening?
I have nothing.
All right, hearing none, let's move forward with some really exciting news. Introductions and presentations, item number 1, Trash Attack 2024. Sandy, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I am here to make the announcement that we have set the date for Trash Attack 2024. It will be Saturday, March 23rd, from 9 until noon, and we will stage at Aviation Park. The rain date is that Sunday, March 24th, from 1 to 3. We are also doing our poster contest again, and that information will go out tomorrow, inviting all kids from K through 12 in the First Flight system or as residents of KDH to submit their Trash Attack artwork. It's always a great time. Dare County Arts Council Executive Director Jessica Sands will again be judging with members of the committee. We have a meeting scheduled for Tuesday, February 6th here in this room at 4 p.m. for planning the event, and we would love to see everyone there. We look forward to continued improvement in this event. The COVID years kind of left us reeling and set us back, but last year we doubled what we did in 2022, and we can hope to do that again this year. So thank you so much for the honor and privilege of heading up Trash Attack. I enjoy it, and I look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you.
Sandy, what time is that meeting on February 6th?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
And it won't last more than 40 minutes.
No. It's a pretty polished operation.
We try. We try. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandy.
All right. Moving on to introductions and presentations. Item number 2, presentation of annual comprehensive financial report.
Mr. Mayor, we have on the phone for any questions that the board has, Miss Emily Mills, CPA with Potter and Company.
Mhm.
Emily, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And with that, I will turn it over to Angel.
So we'll start with the video from Emily.
Good evening. My name is Emily Mills, and I'm a partner with Potter and Company. I am pleased to appear before you this evening to present the town's annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2023. First, let me thank you for allowing our firm to perform this service for the town. Second, I want to commend the work of the finance office. Angel, Sam, and the entire staff were helpful, professional, and wonderful to work with. Each member of the finance department should be highly commended for their efforts. On page 1 of your financial statements, you will find our independent auditor's report. We have issued an unmodified opinion on the statements of the town of Kill Devil Hills as of June 30th, 2023. An unmodified report is the highest level of assurance that we as independent auditors can issue and states that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the town at June 30th, 2023. This is commonly referred to as a clean opinion. In addition to the independent auditor's report, we have also issued a group of reports on the town's compliance. These reports are found in the compliance section of the financial statements starting on page 165. These reports deal with the town's compliance with governmental auditing standards, in addition with its compliance of its federal and state programs with various federal and state laws and regulations. We noted no findings that we consider to be significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. The financial statements were submitted to the LGC on November 17th, and the LGC reviewed these statements on December 5th. There is one item that requires the town to submit a response to the LGC. This item is concerning a benchmark ratio generated from the LGC's data input workbook. The town's response should be submitted to the LGC within 60 days of today's presentation, and it should be signed by a majority of the board, the manager, and the finance officer. Example responses are available on the LGC's website. The balance sheet information for the general fund can be found on page 24. At the end of year, June 30th, 2023, the town's general fund had an unrestricted cash balance of $21 million and a restricted cash balance of $6 million. The general fund's fund balance was $30 million. Of this amount, $18 million was unassigned for any specific purpose. The revenues and expenditures for the general fund are summarized on page 26. The general fund reported $24 million in revenues, $27 million in expenditures, and $4.5 million from other financing sources. This resulted in an increase to fund balance of $1.5 million. The statements for the water and wastewater activities begin on page 30. These funds resulted in a combined increase of $1.5 million for the year. Again, we would like to thank the town for the opportunity to be of service.
Are there any questions for Emily?
I do
I
not.
don't have any.
I don't have any.
Hey, Emily,
Great.
thank you very much. Take care.
Just great work, finance department, and it's always every single year we get these great reports. It's a real point of pride for us. So thank you very much.
And the response to the LGC issue that she referenced,
Mhm.
we will have that for you at the next meeting for your review and signature.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right. Any ongoing business?
Actually, we have just a little bit more.
Oh, my bad. I'm going too quick. Go right
We're
ahead.
going to talk about a little bit more of our highlights. And I wanted to touch on first that performance indicator that she mentioned.
Mhm.
This is concerning the water and wastewater condition of assets ratio. This is a new requirement by the state, and it's a calculation we have to do that estimates the remaining useful life of all of our water and wastewater assets. So the state has set a benchmark at 0.5 or higher, which would indicate that half of the useful life remains on the water and wastewater system assets. And ours calculated to be 0.49, so right under 0.5. But the state set this benchmark at 0.5 because a useful life less than 0.5 would potentially indicate that these assets would have to be replaced in the near future. So if you're below a 0.5, the state wants a response just to make sure that you are keeping up with these assets and making sure that they're not all going to need to be replaced at one time. So the calculation does not take into account the physical condition of these assets. It is strictly a number that's calculated based on what that estimated useful life was when those assets were acquired. So we have an engineer that comes in every 10 years, evaluates the water and wastewater systems, and develops a 10-year capital improvement plan. And this was completed in January of 2022. And the engineer concluded that our water and wastewater systems were in great working condition, great financial condition, no imminently critical infrastructure projects over the 10-year period. So we have a 10-year capital improvement plan to make sure that doesn't happen. But we do have to develop that response. So we're working on that response. And like Debbie said, we'll have that for you at the next meeting for signature. So, yes. And then next, I will present our certificate of achievement for the 2022 annual comprehensive financial report. So this is number 35 for the town, which is always really exciting to get. And it's really a testament to the work of the entire finance department. It takes the whole department to put together a document like this. But I want to specifically thank Beverly Kissinger and Scott Nickens because they really worked to put this together. And we have submitted the 2023 annual comprehensive financial report. And so hopefully we'll have number 36 for you next year. And then next, this year, the finance department put together a popular annual financial report. So this is a supplement to our annual comprehensive financial report, but it is a much more user-friendly, easy to read document that gives us the flexibility to highlight what we think is what you guys want to know, what our citizens want to know, and really anyone who's interested in what's going on in the town. So I would encourage you to look at that document. It's got a lot of good info in it, but I'm going to hit the financial highlights tonight. We will start with the general fund revenues. So you can see those revenues went from about $25.2 million in 2022 to about $24.1 million in 2023. I'll touch on the ad valorem and the other taxes on the next couple of slides. So here I just want to highlight those intergovernmental revenues. Those are grants and just other intergovernmental funds that we get. And that decrease is from a decrease in the FEMA revenues from the Beach Nourishment Project. So we recognized $2.8 million in 2022 and only about $700,000 in 2023. And then those other revenues increased from about $142,000 to $1.2 million. That is due to rising interest rates and the increase in investment earnings. So ad valorem taxes, those have been a steady revenue source for us as we had not increased our tax rate since 2020. We did see about a 1.7% increase in tax revenue in 2023, and that was a result of just improvements in new construction throughout town. And you can see on the chart that we do expect a little bump in 2024, and that's from the tax increase that was implemented. So here are other taxes and licenses. We saw unprecedented growth in 21 and 22 in all three of these: sales tax, occupancy tax, and our land transfer. We really saw leveling off or even a decrease in some of these in 2023. Sales tax, we saw an increase of about 3.5%. Occupancy tax was a decrease of about 3.1%. When you net those together, it was a decrease of $1,780. So pretty stable revenue sources there. The biggest decrease was in that land transfer tax. So we saw about a 40% decrease from 1.8 million to just a little over $1 million. And that was expected as interest rates are rising. Housing market has really cooled off. So it's still a strong revenue, just not quite as strong as it was in 21 and 22. Those intergovernmental revenues I touched on, grants, we thought those were important to highlight. We received the annual PAL bill allocation, and that is a state allocation that goes towards the town maintained streets. So we received about $275,000 in 2023. The Visitors Bureau, we got 2 grants. We got the annual allocation for half of the cost of our fireworks display for about $12,000. And then we got a one-time $200,000 grant that was put towards the cost of some of the cost of improvements to Meekins Field. From FEMA, I talked about the beach nourishment revenues, but we also got about $218,000 for new radios for our fire department. And then lastly here, we have the Streamflow Rehab Assistance Program grant. That was about $258,000 that we received for the rehabilitation of the drainage canal from West Landing to West First Street. So here we'll move into our expenses. You can see there was quite a bump here from about $21.8 million to $27.2 in 2023. A huge part of that was the one-time repayment of our FEMA special obligation bond. That was for the Beach Nourishment Project as well. So if you take that out of the equation, it was about an 8.1% increase. And you can see here how those expenses are separated out by primary function of our general government. Each one did have an increase from 22 to 23. And those were, we had our 7.5% COLA, we had increases to health insurance premiums, and really just an overall increase in operations because of inflation. You can skip that one. So we thought it was important to highlight some of the capital projects that are going on around town. Of course, you guys have seen Meekins Field. We had the new playground equipment, parking lot, tennis courts resurfaced, bathroom facility, landscaping upgrades, and of course the splash pad that was put over there. Aviation Park, the parking lot was expanded and a new roof put on the pavilion. Our streets and sidewalks, street projects that were completed were West 3rd Street, and then the West Durham, North Croatan, and West 5th Street project. Seminole and Indian Street was engineered and bid for completion in the current year. And then the sidewalk was added along 158 in front of the monument. And then town hall improvements, you can see that bright blue roof that was added, and then a new roof also on the record storage building. And that brings us to our fund balance. So total fund balance was $30,615,424. That is broken out about 0.8% of that in non-spendable forms. That's inventory and prepaids. 35.3% is restricted, and that's for state statute, public safety, streets, and capital reserves, which I'll also touch on the next slide. About 2.8% was assigned, and that was for subsequent year expenditures, so money that was encumbered from last year and carried over to 2024. And that left about 61.1% in the unassigned category. So that was 18.7 million. Our fund balance policy requires 8.7 million, leaving about 10 million to meet the ongoing needs of the town. So again, those capital reserves, this is money that's set aside for specific capital projects. So we had about 3.7 million in beach nourishment, about 212,000 in the shoreline accesses, 73,000 in the rec facilities, 49,000 in sidewalks and multi-use paths, and 732,000 for streets. So that's it for the general fund. We do, just briefly, I'll touch on the two other governmental funds that we have. Our ARP Special Revenue Fund, we received the second installment of the American Rescue Plan funding for a total of about 2.3 million. And that money was transferred into the general fund this year. So the balance of that fund at June 30th was down to 0. And then the Beach Nourishment Project, we've talked about that a little bit. So I'll just highlight total expenses as of June 30th were 6.3 million. And that leaves only project closeout costs remaining. Then we have our enterprise funds. Our water fund had operating revenues of about 5.6 million. This was a 3.2% decrease from the prior year, and that was just due to a decrease in system development fees, which come from new construction. And then total expenses were about 4.1 million. This was a 3.6% increase for over 2022, and that's for the same reasons I talked about in the general fund: COLA, health insurance premiums, and overall inflation. And then lastly, we have our wastewater fund. Operation and maintenance of the wastewater plant is contracted, so revenues and expenses here are pretty stable. Total revenues here were about 207,000 and expenses were about 167,000. So that's all I have. Again, I would encourage you to look at the popular annual financial report. It goes into a little more detail and just highlights more than just the finances. And of course, I'm always happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Very nice presentation.
Thank you.
Back on the expenditures for debt service, also that was a big increase year over year. How much? I assume the fire station and those initial payments there probably had a lot to do with
No,
that.
that increase was the FEMA special obligation bond.
Okay.
So that one $3.6 million payment that was made, when you take that out, it actually was a decrease year over year. So that's where that is. The fire station is not part of that yet.
And for the water revenue being slightly down, that's interesting because does that just mean how much money we collected or how much water was used by the town overall?
So that was the total revenues that came in. If you look at just the water that was used, that increased.
Okay.
The system development fees, those are when there's a new construction and setting up, a new house and having the water set up there is there was a lot less of that, which we saw in land transfer slowed down as well. So that's what
Connection
the
fees.
decrease was. Yeah, when you take that out of it, the just the general revenues from water usage actually did increase.
All right. Thank you very much. Questions or comments moving forward?
No,
This
clear. That's
is
very
a
clear.
great, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great usable format. Good job.
Now, Ongoing business. Anything tonight, town manager?
No, sir.
New business. All right. Item number 1, reducing the town's carbon footprint.
Yes, sir. These are some items Michael has highlighted in his memorandum that, just some of the items that the town has been striving to decrease single-use consumption. We have them, you notice is at your place this evening, the new water goblet. And the water, if you notice out in the hallway, is a container. I guess it's called a container water cooler for, all of our citizens and any employees that are out and about can fill up their reusable water glass. That's just one of the things, and I won't go through each of them. But one of the items that we are requesting board action on this evening has to do with paper site plans that are submitted. And in our zoning ordinance, it is a requirement that 15 paper copies be submitted, which is about 10 more than we actually need. So we would like for a motion that would reduce that amount to from 15 to 5 and allow 1 or 2 extra trees to get to remain from the site plans. Plus, it is a savings to our citizens. They are very expensive to reprint, and if there is any change, that's a lot of pages. And you've seen some of the big ones how thick they can be. So, would request a motion for that. Thank you.
I'll make that motion.
We have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that motion. Just want to ask, so that we still be provided with that, the guest
It's
commissioners?
electronic, yes. So you
Okay.
have it electronic. And if you would like to see a hard copy, we would have one of them.
So we wouldn't get that in our packet anymore?
No, sir.
Hmm.
We also have them in the planning department.
I know, but my thing is, I do like seeing them personally. I mean, I'm not an engineer, so I'm not scrutinizing them to the level that anybody, to a knowledgeable level, I guess you'd say. But we voted on this once before, or we talked about this once before, not having it, and we went against that because
What we talked about before was the site plans not coming to you.
Mhm.
That's not what this is. This is not getting the big, thick,
we're just going to get it in electronic form,
yes,
emailed or something. I assume just emailed to us. Okay. So all right.
What we discussed before was that the site plans that were no variances
I thought it
or
was both. That we weren't going to get it. I remember we voted on a
no,
long.
I remember, actually, you didn't vote. It was just tabled and never voted on, but there was, you and Commissioner Gray in particular were opposed to it. What that was what we had explained to the board, was when a site plan meets the ordinance,
Mhm.
there's nothing you can do but approve it.
Hmm.
There's no, there's nothing that you can add to it or take away from it or not approve it legally.
Hmm.
Like some of the other areas do, we were just recommending that it not come to the Board of Commissioners. We certainly would make you aware of it. You would know what was being constructed in town and could certainly review anything that the planning staff had. That's what that was, and we understood at that time that was not something that you wanted to consider. This is simply paper reduction here. You will still have the site plan come before you, even though if it meets the ordinance, technically there's not any action other than approving it that the board should do.
So the 15 that are printed, you're going to reduce it to 5, and those 5 would just be kept for
Well, the 5 would allow for them to go to the departments that need to actually have
a hard copy.
a hard copy to review that do get into the technical aspects of it to make sure that it does meet the ordinance.
I assume the same expectation applies to the planning board. They may have been getting paper plans as well, and they would switch to digital. Yeah. Well,
It's interesting. I don't want it to be like where we have to come search for it, or even if it's an email. I would think that at the very least it should be something like in our packet, so that we can kind of have notice and knowledge of it. You know what I'm saying? So if we're eliminating that, I know what you're saying, but I mean, to me, I like seeing it like on paper.
So you wouldn't
first.
be okay with just a regular size of it? Because
Yeah,
like Michael
like a
was saying,
reduced
they could
size.
reduce the size,
Yeah.
but this is what I
Yes,
think
I
where
would be.
the expense and
Yes, large.
the large,
Blueprint level.
right,
Yeah.
which actually doesn't come from them. It comes from the customer, right?
Correct,
And
yes.
and
They
that's
have
where
to
so
produce
it's
it.
right. They have to produce
Yeah.
it, which is expensive,
No,
and it's
a
a
hard
lot
copy
of
reduced
But
size.
right.
they send it to us in electronic form, and we can reduce it and print 11 by 17s if you really want a paper copy, but it's
Yeah.
going to be difficult to read.
Okay.
But it at least gives you an idea of seeing it. But if you have never looked at one online, like
Yeah.
on it is pretty easy to like manipulate and move around and
Yeah, but
just
that'll be good.
just food for thought.
We have
Um,
some of our technical reviewers
Exactly.
do it solely
exactly.
online. They do not get a
Yeah.
paper copy now.
Yeah.
That's why we.
I
only
just
need
see what
5.
I mean. I see what I
And it's
a lot.
hundreds and
It's a
hundreds of
lot.
dollars that they spend, and they have to do it 3 times at 15 copies each.
Yeah.
And it's probably in the thousands by the time they're done with the site plan review, just to get copies,
Mm-hmm.
not to mention the paper.
I'm
I
gonna,
mean, I'm into saving them money, but and the carbon footprint. But I'm just, if it's 11 by if it's a piece of paper, right, and it's hard to read, then maybe it's useless in that small paper form. So I would think, at least that. Yes, I would want that, at least that, like the small paper form in our packet. But,
And then you can use the combination between the electronic and the small paper form and go.
yeah, I think
you
that's
know.
fair because part of it is notice, and knowledge.
Yeah.
This is where I get notice and knowledge of anything being built
Mhm.
in the town, and I don't have to dig for it. So, for me, and I know Terry, I think I speak for him, but I remember him saying the same thing. We don't want to be last to know sometimes about anything that's going on, sometimes being built or whatnot, and believe it or not, that that document is usually the first. I don't know about you guys, it was the first notice I ever get. Not that it's required, but it's the first notice I get of anything being developed in the town. You know what I'm saying? So for us, it's putting us at least on notice of what's going on. What's being.
That part isn't changing.
Yeah.
It's
No.
still on the agenda. It would still be an agenda item
Okay.
with memos from the planning department
Okay.
and memos from the manager to the board recommending approval or
Okay.
recommending denial if it doesn't meet the ordinance.
Yeah, I know, and it's you're saying it's more or less a formality, and I get that too. I would rather have something on paper,
Sure,
even if it's not the big thing,
you can do that.
just
And then-
not electronic.
And then maybe
entirely.
utilizing that with the electronic version.
Yes, together. I think that would work. So I'd be amenable to that.
Good, thank you.
Anybody?
so we
That
have,
makes sense.
we have a
motion.
motion. Is your second?
Yeah, if that's the motion to do that to the point where we'll have that as well. Yes, I'll second that motion.
Comments. I have one observation is, would we like to we have 2 empty seats here. Would we like to maybe let Terry and whoever gets appointed have their opinion stated about this as well? Or are we ready to make a decision tonight? I know Terry had pretty strong feelings last time, if I remember. And,
But again, this is
Yeah.
a little bit different.
He did,
Just
but his feelings
but this
were-
is different.
Right.
yeah.
There's still we would still
We're not
be getting
removing the
the
review process.
Mhm.
right.
Review process is not changing at all.
I know, but we never were. That was never on the table. Removing the review process.
Well, it
Yes,
was.
Oh, it
That-
was?
That
It was.
that was what we brought to you.
I thought it was
before.
the
Years
paper.
ago.
I thought it was just the paper. Oh,
No, it was
Yeah,
the
the-
review because we were stating to you If it meets the ordinance, there's really no reason for the Board of Commissioners to review it unless you determine that that's what you want to do. And that's how it was left. This is simply a matter of reducing the paper.
Okay, well, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yes, second.
We just, any further comment?
Hmm.
All right, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed? It's unanimous. Less paper. Okay. Moving on to committee reports. Anything to share this evening?
Nothing.
No.
Nothing.
No, not.
Yeah, neither do I. Commissioner's agenda.
I have no agenda.
Nothing this
Wow.
evening.
Mayor's agenda. Two things. I want to thank staff again for getting that resolution in opposition to the home insurance rates done so quickly. I think we really kind of asked a lot of staff to get that done really short time crunch period. And, it really turned out great. I actually had a meeting with other mayors last week and they really were impressed with what we did and copied us to a degree. So it's always nice to be the envy of my peers. So thank you very much. Last week, January 18th, I attended the first Dare County Housing Task Force meeting. This was really a kind of get to know you first meeting moving along. We didn't really, a lot was discussed, but not a lot really, we didn't move a lot forward with things. We had time for everyone to do an introduction. We had a really good presentation on all the history has been taken on addressing housing over the last 30 years. And there's a lot has been attempted and a lot of work has gone into it. And it was nice to learn that. And then the entire group got a chance to kind of speak their mind and share their concerns. And so this housing task force is definitely moving forward. And, I welcome board and staff's input and look forward to sharing this with you all. And thank you, Ryan. He was a big help. He took good notes and I was glad to have him there. So that's it for mayor's agenda. Town manager's agenda.
No, sir, not this evening. Thank you. And nothing from the town attorney either.
All right, then we can move on to the consent agenda.
Yes, sir. The first item is the minutes from the January 12th, 2024. The second is the adoption of town supplement number 19. That approval of the consent agenda will record the approval of this ordinance. And then lastly is recommendation for audit services for fiscal year 23-24. We're recommending Pottering Company of Morrisville, North Carolina, who's been providing our services since 2020. They've been a beneficial partner to the town. The finance department's attached memorandum highlights the second year of the ongoing 3-year contract extension for continuing services through June 30, 2025, and a contract for the fiscal year 23-24 audit for $42,500 plus $1,800 per major program audit cost if required, along with the finance department's recommendation to continue this partnership. And approval of this consent agenda will authorize the manager to execute the contractual agreement for audit services 23-24. And staff recommends approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Okay,
I
We have
move
a motion?
Yes, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, we move on to our second opportunity for public comment. Same rules always apply, 3 minutes for an individual and 5 for a group. And the floor is open to anyone who'd like to speak.
Same name, Dennis Bowl, Greg Shores. A very impressive presentation. That was great. I guess that means that we're in the black. Does that mean, is that what that means in
Yes,
20
sir.
words or less? We're in the black. So we're not broke. The town, I mean. During that conversation, I heard water tossed about a few times. And a few sessions ago, I brought up something that I think would save the town a lot of money. And if it saves the town money, it saves residents, homeowners money. and that is push-on showers. I mentioned that before. If you've gone to the beach, and I know you all have, if you haven't seen a shower head that's missing, if you haven't seen a shower that's still running, you haven't been to the beach much. So I would like to go ahead and reemphasize the thought that I had on push-on. I'm going to call it rinses, not showers, because that's basically what it's supposed to be for. And I was looking at some of the beach accesses that have showers, not fourth or fifth, because they don't have them. But at fourth, it's some of the other, and it looks to me like there's a meter there. With that meter, it tells you how much water is used. My thought is that if you get a valve with a push on, when you take it off, it stops, or you get a whole unit, you could place it in addition to fourth and fifth. You could place it at one of these beach accesses that already has a shower with a meter, and you can compare this year's use versus last year's use. And I think you're going to find that those type of either units or levers that push on will be saving a lot of water. Water equals money. And plus, in the summertime, I hear it all the time: conserve water, save water. Well, it's pretty catchy, nice to say, but I think that this is a possibility where we can put those words into action by using push-on showers. Thank you. Stayed on the reading that.
Would anyone else like to speak at this public comment period? All right, not seeing anybody. Response to public comment. So a push button shower, is it similar to what you see in the hand warmers in restrooms where you push a button and you got 30 seconds or not? No.
It only
You push it and it's on while you're
stays
pushing it.
on.
It stays
yeah.
on. So you're
Sometimes
you're
some of
rinsing
them
with
are
one hand.
levers.
So, okay.
Yeah, some of them are levers. You have to actually pull the lever. I think that's
It's a
what the,
timer.
PI
Cape
only has the
Hatteras.
ones that you hit the button and you have
Yeah.
to stand there and hold the button.
Yes. Cape Hatteras also has some.
And they have ones that
lever.
release, slow release, that you hit it once and it slowly releases, then shuts off.
Mhm.
I've seen that.
I think that,
They're expensive.
I have looked at them. They do have different options on
Yeah.
them. If you want to see one entire unit, they have that at Coquitlam Beach.
Okay.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I want to talk about reducing paper costs. We can reduce cost of water.
Yeah, I like it too. I need to go down there on a warmer day and see what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Any other further response to public comment? All right, moving forward, look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, Mayor.
second.
All right, comment? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Good job. Good job, Mr. Angel. John Barry.